You are sitting in the historic Eldridge Street Synagogue, built in 1887. This was the first grand synagogue built by Eastern European Jews in the United States. We are so looking forward to our program celebrating the incredible new League of Kitchens Cookbook, brilliant tips, secret methods, and favorite family recipes from around the world. We're thrilled to be the venue for this celebration and to be hosting our panelists this evening. Please join me now in welcoming our speakers this evening, and thank you all so much for being here.
Tonight we are here to celebrate the publication of the League of Kitchens Cookbook, named one of the best cookbooks of 2024 by Forbes magazine. That's a big deal. We're also here to honor the founder of the League of Kitchens, LISA KYUNG GROSS, we'll talk about that in a minute, who began her extraordinary cooking school a decade ago. We're also here to embrace the stories of two of her beloved instructors, NAWIDA SAIDHOSIN from Afghanistan. How'd I do? I've been rehearsing. And DAMIRA INATULLAEVA from Uzbekistan. Before we begin, I also want to thank Molly Cerno, a dear friend of Lisa's and a culinary force in her own right, who alerted me to the publication of Lisa's book. So thank you, Molly. The book is nothing short of a love fest. In addition to Lisa's own remarkable story, the book features 14 instructors from 14 countries with hundreds of tantalizing, evocative recipes one can truly make. I had the pleasure of meeting Lisa as a guest on my podcast 5 years ago, One Woman Kitchen. And here we are again 5 years later, celebrating Lisa, the instructors, all of the students whose lives have been enriched. And Lisa just told me today she didn't know herself that there have been 9,405 students since she got started, with almost 1,500 classes, and not to mention the lives of the wonderful cooks whose recipes and stories are chronicled in this beautiful new book. I truly love this book. It is an affirmation and tribute to the immigrant experience, which is, after all, what the museum at Eldridge Street is all about. Tonight we will discuss the impact of women and immigration on our food culture and society, and hear the personal reflections of Lisa, NAWIDA, and DAMIRA, who are helping shape New York's ever-changing culinary landscape. Lisa, you say that your instructors are the culinary and cultural lineage holders, imparting the wisdom from generations before them. Your oldest instructor is 90, and she is from the Ukraine. Your youngest is 39, and she's from Mexico. So in addition to Ukraine, Mexico, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, we have instructors from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Burkina Faso, which is in Northwest Africa, I didn't know, Greece, India, Argentina, Japan, Lebanon, and Nepal. You've also had 3 instructors retire, and they were from Korea, Iraq, and Trinidad. Most exciting is that they have all become friends, which you can see from the amazing photographs in the book. If only the United Nations worked this way. So let me introduce you now. LISA KYUNG GROSS. So I knew Lisa, she did not use Kyung in the middle name, so we want to hear the story of how that came to be. But Lisa is the daughter of a Korean immigrant and a Jewish New Yorker. Her mother, an artist, is Korean, and her father is a lawyer, born and bred, grew up in Great Neck. Lisa's earliest food memories were her Korean grandmother's
된장국.
Thank you, which is a fermented soybean paste soup with cabbage and fish sauce, and her Jewish Hungarian grandma's matzo ball soup. They were both the inspiration for Lisa's creation of the League of Kitchens, and that was born out of her love of cooking, her connection to the immigrant experience, and her desire to transcend cultural and political divides across a hot stove. Her unique cooking school is immersive and takes place in person in the private homes of the instructors, and is now also available online. Lisa, who graduated from Yale in English literature, is a sought-after thought leader and speaker in the worlds of social entrepreneurship, food justice, and the immigrant experience. Lisa and the League of Kitchens has been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Food and Wine magazine, Oprah, and even on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. You'll have to tell us about that. In addition to Forbes, the League of Kitchens Cookbook has received marvelous, marvelous reviews in Food and Wine magazine, Vogue, and Associated Press, among others. Lisa lives in Brooklyn with her husband and 2 daughters who are here tonight. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
NAWIDA SAIDHOSIN is from Afghanistan. Born in Kabul, Afghanistan, NAWIDA grew up watching her mother and grandmother cook for the family, which included 4 sisters, a brother, and her father, who was a general in the Afghan army. After she got married, she moved to Pakistan to live with your mother-in-law's family. And listen to this, where she was responsible for cooking 3 elaborate meals a day for a household of 35 people, plus 4 or 5 guests who were typically present at any meal. After briefly living in Russia with your husband, you came to the US in 2010 with your 5-year-old son, and is now remarried to an Indian man. She loves to cook Indian food too, and he's here tonight. And you have 2 young boys.
A daughter, too.
I have one daughter.
And a daughter.
2 boys, yes.
Yes.
Okay, hi.
My daughter is here.
There's nothing more important to NAWIDA than their education. And she loves the independence and freedom she has found in the United States.
Yes.
NAWIDA, I'm not sure where I read this, but you have also recently trained to become a barber.
Yes.
Fantastic.
I already got my certificate, actually.
That's fantastic. You have to tell us where it is. We all need to come. And is hoping to open her own shop. NAWIDA's unique story and fabulous recipes have been featured by WNYC, Taste, The Choose, Savour, Travel and Leisure, Marie Claire, and the New York Times, among others. I can't wait to hear more about her korma murg.
Korma murg.
Thank you. A tantalizing recipe for Afghan chicken and potato stew with onion gravy. And I also want to find out what she eats when she's alone in the kitchen. Thank you. DAMIRA.
Thanks for having us.
It's such a pleasure to have you all here. DAMIRA INATULLAEVA. Okay. Say it. So we hear you say it.
Can you say your name?
INATULLAEVA.
It's not easy. DAMIRA is originally from Samarkand, an ancient city that lies on the Silk Road, which she refers to as the crossroads of East and West. She loved growing up in such a diverse country where she learned to cook from her mother, grandmother, mother-in-law, and friends in many backgrounds. Where are the men? Okay, for DAMIRA, food, family, and culture are inseparable. She fell in love with cooking as a child on her grandmother's farm, helping to prepare meals for her large family, which included many grandchildren. DAMIRA and her husband left Uzbekistan in 2013 to be closer to the 3 children who were already living in the United States and to experience a new way of life. DAMIRA was a doctor in Uzbekistan. I believe you were a cardiologist. And your mother was also a doctor in
Yes.
Samarkand.
Yes.
Amazing. But in Uzbekistan, if you're 55 years old, you have to retire. So DAMIRA is doing now what she loves most, cooking and hosting people at her dinner table. In 2018, she cooked the first ever Uzbek dinner at the James Beard House, which is a very big deal. And it was also the first halal meal to be served there. DAMIRA has been featured in Food and Wine, Smithsonian Magazine, Grub Street, Epicurious, Brooklyn Magazine, and the Chicago Trib, among others. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband and 3 grown children. They do not live with you. And 4 grandchildren.
5 grandchildren.
Now 5,
5.
as of a couple weeks ago.
Just a few weeks ago. Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful. So welcome to all of you. So we'll get started. Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, I'll begin with something you wrote in your book that tickled me so. You began the League of Kitchens not because your mother taught you how to cook, but because she didn't. Tell us more about that.
So the story behind how I started the League of Kitchens, as you say, was because my Korean grandmother actually lived with my family when I was growing up. So as you mentioned, my mom immigrated from Korea in the early 1970s. My dad is American, of Hungarian Jewish ancestry, and his family came to New York in the 1890s. And when I was growing up, my Korean grandmother lived with our family and cooked all of this wonderful Korean food all the time, but whenever I'd want to cook with her, she'd say, oh, don't worry about cooking, you should go study, because studying is more important. And she really wanted me to have professional educational opportunities that she didn't have and would have loved to have had. And so in her mind, she equated cooking with being stuck at home and not being able to follow your dreams. So also, actually, now that I have kids and I do love cooking with them, I also know that cooking with kids can take more time. So I think there was probably also a piece there of my grandmother just sort of wanting to make dinner, and it was easier if I was doing something else. So fast forward, I was living on my own after college with my husband Dan before we got married, and we got really into cooking, and we wanted to cook recipes from our childhood, and I wanted to cook the Korean dishes that I remembered and loved. And my grandmother had passed away by that time. My mother didn't learn from her for the same reason, because she's the youngest of 6. So by the time she was coming up, my grandmother said the same thing. She has 2 older sisters who learned everything. So I tried to teach myself from cookbooks and from the internet, and just nothing tasted as good as when my grandmother made it. There was something missing. Sure. And I realized that so often in written recipes or in videos, small details and nuances are left out. And those are often the difference between something tasting good and something tasting exceptional. So I had this fantasy of, I wish there was another Korean grandmother that I could cook with and learn her family recipes and cook with her in her home kitchen. And I kind of stored that idea away, and I actually went on to do an MFA in art, focused on participatory public art and social practice. And when I came back to New York, that idea came back to me, and I thought, well, what if I could find amazing home cooks from all around the world who could teach their family recipes and host these kinds of meaningful workshops and cultural experiences in their homes, and it could be just as much about creating these opportunities for cross-cultural learning and connection and exchange as it was about exceptional eating and drinking and learning to cook. So exactly, the start of this cooking school was not learning to cook from my grandmother.
Fabulous, thank you. So how did you meet these 2 beautiful women? How did that happen?
Yes, I came to United States 2010 as a refugee woman, and I was, since came to America, I was having my son 4.5 years with me, and I came refugee through the International Rescue Committee, which is short name is IRC. One of them is here coming to us, and some people coming more. I find Lisa, the IRC introduced me to Lisa about the cooking, and she was sent an email with me and asking me, "Are you want to do that or this?" I was really interesting because I have already a lot of experience. I was since 13 years old. I started cooking with my mother and grandmother, and I love to cook always, and I love to share my culture with everyone, with different peoples. And since I find Lisa, it's honestly our life got changed. We got so many different students from different parts of the world coming to our house. We start cooking from the start of beginning of chopping, cutting, cooking, and eating together. First, it's like we are stranger for each other. After 5 hours, we spend with each other all day, like cooking and eating together. When they left as a friend, we got so many friends, and we learn for each other for about different countries, different cultures. It's make me happy, and I love to be part of League of Kitchen as long I'm gonna work. I'm not retired.
So NAWIDA was actually one of the first instructors I hired in 2013 before we opened.
11 years
ago.
ago.
As she says, I actually reached out to the IRC and to see if they worked with anyone who they thought were strong candidates for this, and they said, yes, talk to NAWIDA. And so actually I went, as part of the hiring process, I do in-home cooking auditions with all the strong candidates.
I can imagine.
I went to NAWIDA's apartment in Rego Park, and she whipped up this incredible meal of Afghan dumplings and kabli palau, which is like a meat and rice kind of pilaf, and I just knew. I was like, okay, you're hired.
Yeah, yeah. Since that we are working, and I love to also, because this our kids going to school. I want to keep my kids in our culture and our foods. Of course, there's nothing going to be better than home food cook. I try to my kids learning about my culture, and I don't want they forget about our culture, food, and I want to make them to love everywhere and every food, every culture, the same. I love it, and I want my kids gonna be the same thing. And from that, we start working right now with Lisa, and right now, thanks God, our book is coming out. It's just not about book. It's really, imagine, like we have a 14 instructor from so many countries, 14 countries. It's if you go just for one book, you're gonna get for one style food. But our book has a 14 instructor, wonderful. They're all excellent cook. They have so many recipes, and I hope you can enjoy. And this Christmas, you can make some of the dish, eat with your loved ones, and enjoy our foods. Yeah.
I love the collaboration here with this cookbook, and I get the feeling that this really is one unique community that I think we're all going to want to be part of as soon as we can. DAMIRA, tell us a little bit about your story and how you met Lisa.
Okay, so when I came to, you heard my story, Rozanne told you, and when I came to New York, my friends asked me what I want to do. And I said them that I want to do something with cooking. But I hadn't exactly to know what I will do, where will I cook, and where will I work. And at that period, I said to my friend that I will never, ever cook Uzbek food. And they laughed, and they said me, and what do you want to cook? And I said, I will cook American food. They laughed again, because they know American food is very big. A lot of cuisines inside of American food. And my friend from Uzbekistan, she sent me the link of the League of Kitchens. And I went to the site, I read everything, and said to myself, yes, this is really what I love to do. I love to cook. I love to socialize with people. And I wrote to the company, and Lisa invited me to the interview. And now I'm instructor of the Uzbek instructor of the League of Kitchens, and I teach people to cook Uzbek food.
Well, just one quick thing about that story. DAMIRA has told me that story before, and I think the last line of that story was your friend saying, actually, American food is Mexican food, it's Chinese food, it's Italian food. And I remember you saying to me, I hope one day Uzbek food will be considered American food too.
Yes, sure.
It could happen after tonight.
And when I start to work for the League of Kitchens, not so many people even hear about Uzbekistan and about Uzbek food. And at that time, I said that Lisa said, I want my cuisine, Uzbek cuisine, will be the part of American food. And it was great experience with the League of Kitchens because, you know, I'm not the professional chef, I'm cooking mom. And from the very beginning, yes, from the very beginning, everything was interesting to me, how to set menu, how to organize the class, what to do to make our classes more interesting. And I remember when we make training, Lisa said to me, your class will be your show. And I thought, my show? Oh, it had to be interesting. And yes, we made a lot of classes in our kitchens. And it was so many interesting people came to our classes. And I can say that my student was unique. And I teach them. I learned from them a lot of things because I just came to America. I learned from them, I learned how to be American. And one of my students, he said to me, you know, food is international language. This is right. And another my student, he said, nothing brings people together like eating together. But I can tell you that I can add to this. Nothing brings people together like cooking and eating together. So what we do on our classes, and there was a lot of other activities in our company, and all activities are the brilliant ideas of Lisa. Thanks to you, Lisa. And we made a lot of different things except of teaching our students in our kitchens. We made demos on the farmer markets. We made panels in libraries and museums of New York. We made a lot of events outside of our kitchens. I want to say you a few words about online classes. 2020, April, you remember what was there. It was pandemic. We all were scared. We all were locked in our kitchens, in our apartments, And at that time, Lisa offered to us to make online classes. And now we were not scaring. We were busy. We thought about our classes. We thought how to organize this class online because it was a new experience for us. And now, if on our in-person classes there was people from New York and guests of New York, and we survived. And what I want to say, even in hard times, cook for somebody, cook with somebody, and cook with love.
Yeah. DAMIRA, thank you. So Lisa mentioned that she interviewed hundreds and hundreds of women to find the right women to teach. I think you did a really, really good job.
Thank you.
In fact, I think there are a few other instructors.
Yes, I actually just want to point out our Argentinian instructor, Mirta, is here.
Beautiful.
Our Bangladeshi instructor, Afsari, is here, and our Indian instructor, Yamini, is here. And they'll also be signing books with us afterwards.
That's so wonderful. You know, I'm also picking up, I'm still feeling like it's daunting, the idea of cooking for 35 people 3 times a day. And I'm thinking of, and I am a professional chef, and I'm thinking DAMIRA just is so open-hearted about, come to my house and let me cook for you and let me entertain you and give you a show and let me cook at the James Beard House. This is amazing. This is really remarkable. I don't know much about Afghani food or Uzbeki food. So, but I have said this, that when a cuisine of a country leaves its place of origin, its recipes become sacred. So, can you tell us a little bit about just kind of the classic repertoire of the classic dishes of your country, like even just 4 or 5?
Sure, you want to be from inside the book or outside the book?
You know, right now, let's do outside the book. This is just your own personal experience, and then we'll definitely have time to talk about the recipes in the book.
Great. No problem.
Well, actually, just one quick thing.
Please.
So the recipes we feature in the book, we really focused on the tried and true everyday family recipes that our instructors cook for their families. But I hope to do another book that can be like a feasts cookbook that's more elaborate, kind of special occasion recipes. So a number of the recipes I know they're going to mention are the more famous recipes from each cuisine are more of the like feast special holiday dishes, and some of which they teach in their classes but are not in the book because our book focuses on more like everyday cooking.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yes, yes. We have a very delicious food, Afghani food. If you're tasted before, it's honestly very delicious, and everyone love it. And I know, which is all my students come and they are very interesting, and they say that we love Afghani food because we have a very like a medium spicy. We don't have very spicy. We don't have without a spicy food. We make medium spices, and our traditional food, which is I have it one of our menus in the immigrant classes from like a 5 hour and a half. We make dumplings, which is meat dumplings. It's very delicious. We make with a white yogurt, garlicky yogurt with a meat filling with the onions, and of course, thin sheet of dough. And then we have the qabli palau, which is carrots, raisin, and basmati rice and lamb. It's very delicious, and this is like our not everyday dishes. Of course, this is for the feast dishes. It's very delicious.
Wonderful. And you mentioned the korma muruk.
The korma muruk,
That's
yes.
one of the recipes
This
in
is-
the cookbook.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we'll get to that. All right. What would be a comfort dish of yours growing up?
Which one?
A comfort dish, something that you had. Was it the palau you mentioned, the rice?
The
Or-
rice was not comfortable, but of course this is like a very traditional Afghani food. But for the like a very easy and simple dish I make it, it's eggplant.
And what
Which
is
is
that?
in the
Eggplant.
cookbook.
Okay.
This is a
Can you
wonderful
tell us
recipe.
about that? Because I have a little story to share.
Yeah, the eggplant is of course in our books, but this one is very simple and easy to make it. It's not very hard. Eggplant with the fresh tomato, jalapeno, and garlic with the yogurt sauce. This is like very easy dishes, which is in all Afghans knows about that, which is like some people, it's in the party, we make it side dishes. But if you're in the house, you have nothing to eat and you come in from work tired and just you want to grab some eggplant and make it some easy dish, which is take about 10 minutes to make. It's not hard.
Well, it takes
This
you
one-
10 minutes.
Yeah, it takes
NAWIDA's
so
a
easy.
super speedy cook, as you can imagine.
Yes,
The rest
I
of
love
us maybe
that.
like half an hour.
Yeah, for me it's like honestly because I was like long time cook and anytime my student come in they see that I'm like how you cutting the vegetables I really afraid it's like so fast and you're not cutting your hands. I said this is why we have experience because I was since 13 years now I'm 44 years and I'm cooking long time and of course for 35 people and with some guests it's gonna be a lot but we was did it and right now we are continue working on that.
Beautiful, thank you. And Damira, what would be a few just classic dishes of the Uzbeki kitchen?
So, about classic dishes. First, I want to say that in Uzbekistan, almost all the people love to cook and love to eat. And the guest is very important person in our home. And we want the person who came to our home feel himself very comfortable and very happy. And our traditional dishes, so if you will, it depends. If you just knock at the door, and even if people have nothing to offer to you, they will offer to you a cup of green tea and bread. Bread is always on the table of Uzbek people, and some snacks. But if you will go to the wedding party, for example, there will be a lot of snacks, fruits on the table, different kinds of bread, different kinds of desserts, and several courses of the dishes. And to the end of every event that are spent in Uzbekistan will be plov. Plov is the king of Uzbek cuisine. In my home, plov make men. And that's why when we presented food in a James Beard House Foundation, plov was cooked by my husband.
Damira's husband, Sahib, who's here, is a wonderful cook. Yes.
But there's some similarities, though. So in Uzbekistan, it's plov, and in Afghanistan, it's pilau.
Well,
but these are very similar dishes.
Yeah.
So I realized actually after we had planned this talk, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan are geographically very close together.
Yes, next
and
door.
so, and we have an Iranian instructor too. So Iran is also right adjacent.
Yes.
And I've been able to see, getting to really know each of their cuisines, the way that they kind of shade into each other. So there are differences, but then similarities. So obviously, as they're saying, these rice with meat and vegetables and dried fruit is Iran, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, very important to all those cuisines.
And which is the spicier of the two? Which would you say? Maybe uses more chilies
The
or
rice is supposed to be not spicy.
not spicy?
Yes, but the meat, our eggplant should be spicy, but our food is actually influenced from Iran, Uzbekistan, Samarkand, which is we are all neighbor, and Pakistan, India. This is why our food influenced from them, and we have like very close friendship, which is from long times ago, and this is why our food is very close. But everyone has their own style food. Like for example, we make a qabli palau. We have a lamb, and they put beef, and we have a carrots with raisins, and then they put carrots with the chickpeas. As this is like a little different, and our rice is always as a basmati rice. We make the long basmati rice, and they have a short rice. Yes, the white rice, the short one. It should be a little sticky, the traditional way, and our rice should be very fluffy and soft.
Oh, so that's a very
it's
major
very
difference,
different.
actually. It's subtle, but
It's
major.
actually, if you taste, it's very different taste. It's not the same taste, but the name is the same. They say plov, like it's I think actually Russian word say the plov. It's Uzbeki?
Yes.
Okay, because their language is Russian and Uzbeki. They say plov, we say palau, qabli palau. Yes.
And then pilaf is the
Yes.
same root too.
We can probably go down the line,
yes.
right?
And then, like our Bangladeshi instructor makes incredible biryani, which is also rice and meat and spices, so it is interesting. As we've added instructors from different cuisines and sometimes they're adjacent, just personally I've gotten to see kind of all this interesting interrelationship
Amazing
between
roadmap.
cuisines.
Yeah. Reminds me of a wonderful children's book that I love called Everyone Loves Rice. And it really
Yes,
is about rice
yes.
from every country in the
I
world.
feel like you could also say Everybody Loves Dumplings. That'd be a good
That
sequel.
should be wonderful. I believe the soul of a book is revealed in the table of contents. And so it is so interesting that your book begins with chicken. So the first chapter is chicken. Tell us about that. And just to let you know, the book is so beautiful, full of gorgeous photographs and so many recipes. It actually weighs the same as a small chicken. The book weighs 2 3/4 pounds.
Oh, wow,
I weighed
you
it.
weighed it. Yeah.
It's so heavy. So tell us about the organization of
Yeah.
the book, how that came about.
Right. So we actually had a
Talk to
different.
the
Okay.
audience.
Yes.
I know you want to talk to me, but talk to
We had
them.
a different book proposal that we worked on actually in 2015. And that book was organized by cuisine. So each cuisine had a chapter. And we didn't sell it. We got this feedback from editors that anthology cookbooks don't sell well, and they were reluctant to, because it felt like an anthology of different cuisines. So we kind of put it aside, and then I was actually cooking from Melissa Clark's dinner cookbook, which I don't know if you're familiar with it or anyone here is familiar with it. It's organized by main ingredient. So there's a chicken chapter, beef chapter, a seafood chapter, and then salads, vegetables, soups. There are no desserts, which is interesting. I know that was controversial when that book came out. But it's very global, it's in her chicken chapter, she has like a Japanese chicken, a Lebanese chicken, Italian chicken, et cetera. And I realized cooking from that cookbook, that's the way we all cook now. We all cook from different cuisines. And also that cookbook is so practical because I think the way most people use cookbooks is they have some chicken and they're like, what do I do with this chicken? I need a recipe. Or I'm roasting a chicken and I need a vegetable side. I'm sick of roasted broccoli. What else can I do? And so people need to find a vegetable recipe. So I realized if we organized our cookbook that way, it would accomplish a few things. One, I knew from the beginning I really wanted this to be a practical cookbook that would be inviting to actually use. And two, I wanted to interweave all of the cuisines and cultures. I felt like it would be much more powerful. And that, again, is how we cook. One night we cook Lebanese, one night we cook Chinese, I think. And and chicken is just such a practical, ingredient that we all cook a lot. And, you mentioned, so my kids are here, my husband, I do a lot of cooking day in, day out, and I have to cook a lot of chicken. So I thought, let's have a chicken chap, start with chicken, but let's make it interesting. So I really tried honestly, the book ended up, I think we have 78, 80 recipes in the book, actually. We cut it down from 150, and that was cut down from an initial list of like 200 something. Wow. So every recipe, you know, is fabulous, I think, and our editor thought, and feels sort of unique and special in some way. Because I also really wanted to share recipes that are really delicious, like delicious comfort food, but that people haven't necessarily encountered. Like a lot of Americans haven't encountered Afghan and Uzbek home cooking, for instance, or even in the cuisines that are more familiar, like for instance, the Japanese recipes we share a number that are sort of less familiar or more kind of home cooking style.
Is there one cuisine that is the most popular, or would you say it's really spread out very well over the 14 different countries?
I mean, I think they're all popular. I think, interestingly, over the years, sometimes certain kinds of students are drawn to certain classes. Like I noticed that our Greek instructor was getting a lot of beginner students because maybe Greek cooking feels like a little bit more accessible, less intimidating. I think our Uzbek instructor, DAMIRA, was getting a lot of students who wanted to encounter a cuisine that was unfamiliar. You know, also a lot of our instructors get students who have just been to that country or who are planning to go to that country. Like I know Mirta, our Argentinian instructor, has given many tips to many students about where to visit in Mendoza, where she's from in Argentina. And actually DAMIRA even met up with a student in Samarkand who was visiting at the same time she was there. So yeah, and I mean, I think I can't choose one. They're all popular. They're all, you know, but it is interesting that I mean, one interesting thing too, our Japanese instructor tends to get a lot of students who work in finance. And I think it's because people in finance eat a lot of sushi. They have the money to go to expensive Japanese restaurants in New York, and then they want to learn Japanese food, how to cook Japanese food. So, you know, it's sort of interesting.
A couple of things that relate exactly to the recipes. So you talk about the strength of your recipes and your recipe testing. I noticed they are incredibly precise, much more precise than any recipe I have ever written in any of my cookbooks. And you said that you want people to follow them exactly so they
the first time,
so they will really understand what the true taste of the dish is. But I say this is a paradox because you probably never measure at home.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
So never. We're not measuring. We just grab it and pray it. That is coming wonderful. But we are go through so much. Our recipe writers, they go one by one, and we just grab it. And she said that, hold on there. We're just holding, and she's make a measuring, and then she write it back down. And they make us save the video, which is we make a video. They have to go home and lay that.
I'll explain the technique, but yes, to address
our audience.
So in the introduction, as Rozanne's saying, the recipes are very long and very detailed. And they're not difficult. They're just very precise. And that's because I wanted us to write a cookbook that was different from those cookbooks I tried to use to teach myself how to make Korean food, where I felt like the food didn't taste as good as my grandmother's. I wanted to include all of those small details and nuances and tricks and tips and ways of doing things that make such a difference. And so we say in the introduction, we recommend that the first time you cook through them, you really measure and follow them as exactly as possible so that you can taste how our instructor's food tastes. If you follow these measurements, the food will turn out tasting like NAWIDA and DAMIRA's food. And then we say, after that, do whatever you want. Mix it up, alter it. However, if you want to learn something new, if you want to make fabulous Afghan and Uzbek food, follow these directions. Because, right now I think there is a trend in cookbook writing to be very broad and casual. A lot of cookbook writers now are saying, we want you to trust your instincts and taste and cook without measuring and be free. And I get that, and I think that's a beautiful goal to aim for. But especially if you're not that confident a cook, if you're not that experienced a cook, and if you haven't cooked Afghan or Uzbek or Indonesian food before, you're not going to have instincts for what to do or what's right. You know, maybe in the cuisines you grew up with or eaten a lot, you can cook that way. But if we are just very vague about how to cook Afghan food, it's not going to turn out that well. And I think there's nothing more frustrating than cooking a recipe from a cookbook or the internet or wherever and having it not turn out and feeling like, oh, I spent 2 hours and I bought all these ingredients and it didn't. It's so demoralizing. So that's why the way we wrote this cookbook is we mailed every instructor a digital scale, measuring cups, measuring spoons, a ruler, everything. We actually did Zoom recipe writing sessions that were a little bit like mini cooking lessons, where we decided in advance the recipes we were going to cook. The instructors sent me a shopping list. I bought everything. And then they would do a step. They would measure it. I would do that step. I would measure it. We recorded the video. My co-writer, Rachel Wharton, who's a really fabulous, experienced cookbook co-writer, she watched those videos over and over again, and then she wrote the recipes from those videos, and then she sent them to me to test, to cook through, and then I had questions and notes. Then we would write to the instructors on WhatsApp. They would send voice texts about the answers to our questions. We would edit the recipe again.
This book is not easy. We made it. We did so much through the hard work.
Yes.
We put so much energy on that, and we worked so hard on this book.
And then we rewrote the recipe and sent it to each instructor to look through. And we literally, it was like, NAWIDA, weigh that onion unpeeled. Okay, ounces and grams. Okay, now peel it, you've diced it. How many cups of diced onion is that? And then how big is that piece of onion? Is it a ½ inch? Is it a ¼ inch?
Yeah.
Is it a third of an inch? Because one of the things that's very unique about our instructors' recipes is, for instance, a lot of things are cut slightly smaller or slightly bigger than is conventional in most American recipes, and those details change the experience of the dish or change how it cooks. So we were kind of a pain in the ass, and it was very, it took a lot of time and effort, and I give so much credit to our instructors for being, wonderful sports about this process and going through it. But I think we've created something that really captures how our instructors cook, that if you follow them, you'll make food as good as theirs.
I don't know if anyone in the audience has even thought about writing a cookbook, but after hearing this, there's just no way.
It was fun. I really enjoyed it also.
I can assure you, most books are not done with this level of detail, but dig this detail. I love this. The rich level of detail in this book. You see how to use your knuckles to press breadcrumbs.
That's from Mirta, our Argentinian instructor.
A cutlet. This is wonderful.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
I love that example.
Of something nuanced that she learned from her family that you don't see in the other, cookbooks anywhere, and it makes such a difference for how the breadcrumbs stick to the chicken cutlets.
It all matters. If it didn't, we'd all be great chefs, and clearly we are not. This is a question from my husband. So the recipes are detailed and beautiful, and you can almost taste them as you're reading the ingredients, but then you look at the ingredient list and say, where do I get this ingredient? Where do I get these ingredients? Some of them are not so familiar. So can you tell us the few spices or herbs you cannot live without, and where do you get your spices? And are they ground and
that's a great question for them, but I will just
Yes.
say we used the Whole Foods test when we were writing this cookbook.
What is that?
I'd say 95% of the ingredients can be purchased at Whole Foods.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think post-Ottolenghi, the Ottolenghi cookbooks, which became huge bestsellers, and if you're not familiar, he's an Israeli chef, and he wrote these kind of Middle Eastern Mediterranean cookbooks that become very popular that require things like dried Persian limes or ground sumac or pomegranate molasses. So many culturally specific ingredients that previously were difficult to find are now sold by Whole Foods. And if they're not, any other ingredient in the cookbook that is more culturally specific, you can order on Amazon. So it's nothing is...
That's great to know.
Yes, and that was something we really considered because we knew this cookbook would hopefully be going wide in America, and we wanted it to feel accessible. But okay.
Yeah,
now
so Whole Foods should be carrying your cookbook as well. That's a great advertisement for them. Yes, so spices, and how do you treat your spices, and what can't you live without for your cuisine?
Okay, my spices, which is the two very important for me, it is one of them is cardamom, the another one is dry mint, which is we use a lot, and
Wow.
I cannot stay without these two spices. But actually,
Can I just ask, does anyone have cardamom or dried mint in their cupboards right now? Okay, you're halfway there. Beautiful.
yeah, I love cardamom because we always put it in our tea, and this is gonna give you kind of, they say that for the meditation also good, make a brain calm down. We eat a lot for the cardamom and the dry mint. We find, actually in New York City, we never have a hard time to find any spices because of course New York City, every corner has a different culture, different spices. And I always shopping my spices from Indian stores, Patel Brother, which is, they have a very good spicy and fresh and has a very good price.
What is the name of the store?
Patel Brother.
In Jackson Heights,
Yeah,
Patel
Jackson
Brothers,
Heights.
where
Yeah, I've
our
heard
Indian
great
instructor Yamini and our Nepali
Yeah.
instructor Roshna also
They have a
shop.
very fresh, and honestly, it's so good. Like the dry mint, mostly I got always from Afghanistan. My sister dry and send it to me. Anybody come, I use always in my kitchen for the students. I don't get, but we have another store near my house. It is a Mediterranean store. They have it dry mint, they have a cardamom, and everything we find it. These two is my main spices.
Can't live without that. And
Yes.
Damira, what can you not live without?
So, because we use our family recipes, we share our family recipes. The ingredients that I use for my cooking, they all are affordable, and you can find it in every grocery store. And mostly in Uzbek cuisine, we use like spices. We use cumin. Forgot the name.
Cayenne pepper, black pepper
Cayenne
powder.
pepper, cumin, and I forgot
Black
the
pepper
name.
powder.
Yes.
Yeah.
But not
Coriander.
coriander.
Yeah, ground
yeah.
coriander. Yes, and a lot of fresh
we
herbs.
use coriander seeds and ground coriander. And mostly in our cuisine, we use cumin seeds. And from time to time, we use ground cumin. And what I want to say, I use cumin that I buy in the grocery store where Uzbek people make their purchase. And I buy mostly Uzbek cumin.
Oh, you can buy
Yeah.
it.
It's actually a little different. It's
There
called
you can
mountain
find
cumin.
two kinds of cumins. It is from mountain places, small seeds, sharp smell, and dark color. And from valley places, soft smell.
You know what you're describing, Damira, is it possible that this mountain cumin is a little bit more like caraway? Do you know caraway? Because it's darker and kind of
Darker,
a deeper,
yeah.
earthier flavor.
Actually,
So maybe
Burlap
there's
and
some-
Barrel, the wonderful small spice company, they sell mountain cumin, this Uzbek
yeah.
cumin seed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And cumin from the valley places of Uzbekistan, light color, biggest seeds, and soft smell. And one more ingredient that we use, I buy in the grocery stores of Uzbek people where they make their purchase. This is dried apricots.
Dried apricot.
Dried apricots. And in the cooking book, we have the recipe of the soup, Uzbek soup, named mashhurda. All Americans who try this soup love this soup. And we use in this recipe dried apricots.
It's a green mung bean soup with carrots and onion and a lot of fresh dill and cilantro. And at the end, you add dried apricots and you top it with labneh, which is like thick Greek yogurt. It's fab. And there's also rice in it.
Of course, in New York, you can find everything. But if you live in different state, you can substitute these dried apricots with Turkish dried apricots. It also works.
What is
Yes.
the subtitle of the book?
Well, you have the book.
We lent
you
the book
passed
to
it.
someone?
It's I know it's long.
It's long,
Yes,
and only
but
now is it really making
Yes,
sense to me.
it's brilliant tips, secret methods, and favorite family recipes from around the world.
That's it. That's the book. Tell me about eating out in restaurants here, and whether people eat out in, Afghanistan. Are there celebrity chefs? Just talk a little bit about restaurant culture. And can you get true, authentic Afghani food in restaurants or Uzbeki food?
Okay, we have, of course, Afghanistan also we use restaurant, but more people use homemade food in Afghanistan. They are go like, it's not like America, like every week where you just like, you don't have nothing, you go in restaurant. But we use like some very limited time to go restaurants, but we have some special foods, which is, we have a very delicious fish, they fried. This one, most people go in the restaurant eat. It's not in the house because they make, the way they make it, fried fish is very delicious. Nobody can make it home because it's so much smell and because of fried. And people go very often for the fish, fried fish, but the another fish, which is we make it, which is I have it one fish.
It's in the cookbook.
Yeah, it's in the cookbook. That one we make it at home. But the rest we have a chabli kebab and kebab we eat outside mostly because it's the outside is very delicious.
The grilled
People go-
meat.
Yes.
Because you can do it differently in a big outdoor grill.
Yeah, but it's not like really people into restaurant much. Most people use the homemade food and they love to eat home because everyone has a lot of, we are not like every family has like 5 children, husband, wife. They cannot afford to go everyday restaurants, I'll be honest. And
a
they
good
want to
point.
make a home food. Of course, if you just got married, you have one wife and kids, you can go easily. But if like 8 kids or 5 kids with husband, wife, it's so expensive it's not easy to afford to go restaurants.
Thank you. And Damira, what about Uzbeki restaurants?
Uzbekistan, during 70 years, was part of the former Soviet Union. And at that time, in a restaurant, food was not very delicious. And mostly people cooked at home. And even wedding parties, we did on the backyards of our homes, on the streets. And even if people passed through the street, they invited them to enter and took part in the wedding parties. But right now, during the time of independence in our country, a lot of very beautiful decorated and a lot of restaurants with very good food. And many ethnic food are presented to the guests of our country. And my hometown, I consider Samarkandian food the best in Uzbekistan because I'm from Samarkand. And in our home city, you can exactly find the place where you can not only eat, but you can watch how they cook this food. And for example, in our city, we have special place where they cook only plov. And they start to cook it early in the morning until the afternoon it will finish. In other places, they made shish kebabs, 100 kinds of shish kebab. In other places, they made sambusas, different kinds of sambusas, and you can watch how they bake it in the clay ovens. We still, in our country, use clay ovens named tandoor, and we bake bread in this, we make sambusas in this, and we have only special places when you can watch how they do it and try. The meat that they bake inside of clay oven that is inside in the ground. In the ground, they put the whole lamb inside and locked it very, very good.
Yeah, that would be very hard to do at home, wouldn't it?
And then when they take it from the oven, incredible, incredible smell, and you're just waiting to try a piece. And I want you to say what is the main features of Uzbek cuisine. First, the dishes are very delicious. Second, they smell very good. And third, when you eat something from the Uzbek cuisine, you can exactly recognize what ingredients are inside, even if many ingredients are mixed.
Wonderful, thank you.